We're talking waiver wire in a little bit, and you can go and check out that article. It is live at fantasylife.com. But since we're talking about Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers, with Chris Godwin out for the season, and then Mike Evans, haven't seen an updated timeline on him. They're going to get further testing done today, and we're probably going to know by the end of this show, hopefully, if not tomorrow morning, what it's going to look like. They need guys to step up, though, and they've been good too. That's the thing. This team has been solid going through it. We talked about Baker Mayfield, top 8 quarterback the rest of the way. But they're going to need to dig deep. They're 4-3 now, and they go up in week 8 against the Atlanta Falcons, also 4-3. So they're really going to have to look. I wrote up Jalen McMillan. That's the obvious one. I think, Adam, on the waiver wire that's going to step up. I know we've talked about Cade Otton as well, but those seem like the two ones, depending on, of course, we have to wait and see how long Mike Evans is going to be out. But those are the two guys that should be at the top of priority that could get the biggest boost for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with those two out.
Yeah, for sure. McMillan is a guy I liked a lot before the year and drafted him, and I think I was cutting him over the last week or two in some of my leagues. So that's great. Now I got to go and spend some money to get him back, but that's just the way it goes. Because the way I was looking at it was I was picking up some running backs instead, stashes, because you look at it and you go, okay, well, he hasn't really done much with Evans, Godwin healthy. So you needed an injury, and I didn't expect both of those guys to get hurt this week. So unfortunately,
they said, here you go.
Yeah, unfortunately it happens. I guess you could look at Sterling Shepard a little bit too in deeper formats because he was starting to get more involved, veteran receiver, and I guess even Trey Palmer. But yeah, clearly Jalen McMillan would be the number one guy, and Cade Otton at tight end. We saw him get 100 yards. Took some massive hits, too, late in the game, too. I couldn't believe he got up from a couple of them, but yeah.
And no Otton, flags on a couple of them, too.
So Otton would be the other guy as well. So I agree, but McMillan definitely the top choice there for wide receiver in Tampa Bay.
And Otton is going to be less available, especially with all of you guys listening. He's 40% rostered across Yahoo leagues right now, so I know that he's not going to be as available. But McMillan should be the one, only 3% rostered. So you can definitely go out and get him, and the others are pretty 1%, if not close to 0. So those are the ones that you can go and get on the waiver wire. Again, that article is live, fantasylife.com, and we're going to keep going through a lot of these waiver wire pickups and names that you need to know here in the next segment. And we're going to be talking with Dwayne McFarland too, so he'll tell us all the utilization we need to know. The bad news, it just continues here, Adam. I'm going to be totally honest. We don't have a piece of good news in this first segment. Nothing. We talked about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson to kind of just ease into it, and I guess that was the best news that we were going to talk about in this first segment. But Brandon Ayuk confirmed tore his ACL and MCL. He's out for the season, and Deebo Samuel was hospitalized with pneumonia. So his timeline, I also have not seen an update on him, but he has some fluid buildup in his lungs, and he was in a local hospital after checking in on Sunday night. So I'm sure we're going to get some updates later in the week here, but Shanahan said there is no timeline for when Deebo Samuel could return, and now they just lost Brandon Ayuk for the season, which we kind of knew that, Adam, when we saw that injury and talked about it yesterday. It looked absolutely brutal. But here's another team that it's not just next man up. It's guy behind the guy, behind the guy, behind the guy on the waiver wire. And they're going to need, honestly, a lot of people to step up. They didn't have Juwan Jennings in week 7 with his shoulder injury. Deebo Samuel obviously didn't play because of his illness. And then Brandon Ayuk went down in that game. So you're looking at having to go out and get a Ricky Pearsall is probably the top one that's going to benefit the most here, right?
I think it's Juwan Jennings, but the problem is we don't know if he'll play this week after sitting out last week. Like, we saw him earlier this year step in and perform very well. And they brought him back, signed him in the offseason. He had that massive game against the Rams, 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns. So when given the opportunity, we've seen him excel. But if you're bidding tonight and we don't have an update on his status, that's what's going to make it tricky. So I'd still likely go with him, especially if you are not in immediate need this week and no teams are on bye. But then again, you could have had Godwin, Evans, and Deebo or Ayuk. But yeah, Ricky Pearsall's right there with him. Deebo, they play this week, then they have a bye. So there's a chance that he does sit this week. Again, we don't know the status, and it's a lot more serious than we thought.
Yeah.
So both receivers are going to be worth pickups here because we know Ayuk's out for the year, and they're going to need guys to step up. So Jennings and Pearsall. And Jennings might have been dropped recently as well. Once you saw everyone healthy, probably figured, okay, I'm not going to get much out of him. And especially when people saw that he was out this past week, they probably cut him.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it was actually a hip injury, not I think I said shoulder earlier,
Yeah,
but I believe it's hip. So, and that's the thing with Jawan Jennings, like he's rostered in 31% of leagues right now. So he should be somewhat available. I highlighted Ricky Pearsall in the waiver wire article because he's only 13% rostered, is going to definitely probably be there in more leagues than not. He finished on Sunday. He had 3 receptions, 5 targets, 21 yards. Dwayne McFarland also pointed out he had an 86% route participation, 18% target share. I know when you look at the box score, you're going to say 5.1 fantasy points. Like this is with all these guys that were out, but it's going to improve and get better. I even think that Shanahan came out and said that they didn't get as much practice in when they were going up for this game. So when you look at Ricky Pearsall, you're kind of in it for the long haul because we know that Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. Again, you mentioned Deebo Samuel could come back this week, but they have this game this weekend for week 8, and then they're on their bye, like you said. So it's playing the long game. But I think that if you get Ricky Pearsall, he's going to improve week after week. You kind of just have to wait. He came in 50 days after being shot in the chest, which was phenomenal to see. Another one too that I wrote up that's way deeper leagues, right? This is for a lot of people listening that are like, oh, these guys are never available. But Jacob Cowing was kind of interesting, Adam. And this is one where you say, the conversations that we've had like with Noah Brown, where it's okay, who's going to step up? 0% rostered, and they're just banged up. So I want to say that Jacob Cowing is a rookie to target. He caught 2 of 3 targets for 50 yards going up against the Chiefs this weekend. Definitely a deep play. But again, if Jawan Jennings especially is unable to go, they're going to look to Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing this weekend.
Yeah, definitely for deeper leagues, was good at Arizona. And basically, so what I do in this situation, people are going to put in a lot of bids this week because of these injuries, especially at the wide receiver position. So make a long list, and Cowing is on it towards the bottom for lesser money. So this way, if people are way aggressive on Jennings and McMillan and the other receivers that we'll talk about, you have him on the list, you get him, and you take a flyer, and it might work out better. We've seen it before. So that is a name to have, more so in leagues with, 18 roster spots or more. I think in the leagues with 16 roster spots, a 12-team league, you'll probably be able to get the other guys. But in the more deeper formats, I think he should be on that list. Again, I make massive lists. A week like this, I'm going to have 10 guys on that list, 12 guys. And because I'm assuming, and even in those deep leagues, he's available. I think there's going to be several receivers available. Pearsall, I did see get picked up in the high stakes leagues this past weekend, so he might not be there. So you might have to go down to a Cowing.
Are you running out of room on your list? Like you just have to cross everyone out. You're just like, well, this guy just got hurt and now this guy got hurt. And it's a good way to do it though, because you can't, I think that was the best piece of advice we gave at the beginning of the season is like, you can't just put in 1 or 2 bids for the top guy and then expect to get them and just go on your way. You especially with all these injuries, you need to be making those lists, like you said, Adam, or just having these guys in mind where you need to be putting in way more than 1 or 2 bids to expect to get someone back.
Yeah, it's just, and again, in these leagues with 20 roster spots, a lot of these guys are taken already. Again, I saw Pearsall picked up in all those leagues over the weekend.
It's going to be fine, Adam.
But that goes to show too. I've said this before. If you play in those high stakes leagues where they have the 2 waiver wire runs Wednesday and Saturday, that Saturday one, a lot of people forget. It's the weekend. They think all the good guys are picked up, but there's a lot of injury news on Friday that we don't know on Wednesday. Like, that's what you do. You take the chance on a guy like Pearsall over the weekend for it only cost you $10, $20. Now, look how you were rewarded. So it's important to look at that second waiver wire run because you can get these guys for cheap. Once you hear, Pearsall is going to make his debut, okay, yeah, I'm going to pick him up, put him at the back end of my roster. Look how much money you save now. Because if you didn't, If you're going to the waiver wire today, Pearsall is going to cost in those leagues 30 to 40, 50%. Maybe because we're midway through the season and if the people that have money to spend, they're going to empty the clip this weekend. So it's very important that you look at that second waiver wire run for those high stakes leagues.
That's Ani and I this weekend. We're spending all our money in GST, Adam. It's just we've decided it's just time to spend all our money.